Good morning. So we are at day camp today with Miss Remi. It's her first day joining us, and she is starting off with one-on-one work before we start integrating her into work with the pack. And the main reason that she's working with us is to help desensitize her a bit to other dogs. So she struggles a bit with reactivity, mainly towards other dogs. She's a very sweet, very social dog with people, that has a bit of a history of becoming overexcited and frustrated and a little bit nervous with other dogs in the picture. So she's got some kind of complicated feelings about other dogs. So basically I wanted to kind of walk through in real time what we're working on to start setting her up for success overall. So the biggest thing when you're working with a leash reactive dog is leash work. So we really want to start building solid leash skills without the presence of the things our dogs struggle with before we start worrying about whether or not the dog can handle seeing other dogs. So really important to start small and set the dog up for success, and then get a little bit more challenging as we go. So with Remi, what I really want to start building is a strong, I would say more of a structured walk heel, not a performance heel, not a fancy, hey, I'm going to compete in obedience, but just enough to have her have a really structured, stable position right next to me that allows me to have a lot of control over what it is that she's deciding to do in any given moment, and keeping her really focused on me, rather than kind of giving her a decent amount of the leash. So this requires a lot of proactive handling, to make sure that we're really communicating to the dog where we want them to be and why it's rewarding for them to be there. And this will also start pulling the dog into a bit more of a follower state of mind. So rather than the dog kind of going, well, you're here, but also there's all this other stuff, I want her really focusing on what I'm doing, because that will prevent her from having quite so much focus on all of the things around her that may or may not be triggering. It also gives me a lot of base to give her direction when she's a little bit uncertain or when she's starting to lose a little bit of self-control. She's already built this habit of really checking in, and finding value in what I am doing on the other end of the leash. So I'm gonna get her moving a little bit. Let's go. So I'm keeping her pretty close with me. She has a nice amount of base work already, so I'm not starting at zero with her. And basically you'll see I keep the leash fairly short. It's basically just long enough where I can make sure I'm keeping it loose to her, but I'm close enough to the collar where I can give direction really easily without having to make big motions. I can just give tiny little movements to give her communication through the leash, to ask her to move in a little closer to me, to slow her down if she's starting to forge too far ahead, or to give her little encouragements to move forward towards me if she's lagging behind. And I'm going to support with food as well. So I like to have a dog that learns to feel this pressure and then look to me for the reward. So you'll see a little bit of that as we're going through. So here, good. I'm adding pressure to ask her to move with me. So if I'm turning right, good, I may add a little bit. And then as soon as I see that she is starting to follow through with what I'm asking, big give. So I almost push the leash back in towards her. Good. And basically I'm ready to make a turn as soon as she starts moving out ahead of me or forging. Good. Or I'll make a left turn and use my body pressure to kind of keep her behind me and keep her a little bit more mindful of her position. Good. So when she's right next to me in that spot I really want her to be in, I have a loose leash. But as soon as she starts moving a little too far outside this little bubble next to me, that's where I'll add a little pressure here just to ask her to get closer. Good. Very good. Good. Very nice. So this just gives me a lot of control if I get surprised by other dogs, people, squirrels, whatever it is that the dog may lose focus on me for. I can now use that leash even if she's not looking at me, even if she's not working for food, but we still have the food in the picture. Good girl. And she's a very food motivated dog, which helps. Yes, good job. Right here. Good job. So you'll notice as we go, I need to use less and less pressure. Give her a little reminder. So she's got a really firm understanding of exactly where I want her to be, because I'm very consistent about my handling. So basically, I want to be pretty consistent about where I am on the leash, because I don't want her to sometimes wander, you know, a foot or so in front of me and then have to move her back. That's kind of confusing for her. I want to be ready for as soon as she starts to show intent to move out of this little bubble next to me, that's going to be when I add a little bit of leash pressure, add a movement to pull her focus back. Because otherwise she's not really clear on what she's supposed to be doing. At this stage too, I don't really allow the dog to sniff. This is all very focused work here. Doesn't mean your whole walk has to look like this, but for the sake of building this skill, I want her paying attention to me, not the environment. Good girl. And I can start working in some obedience. Sit. Good. Give her some ways to earn some food. Good job, right here. And I like to use the word right here, words right here for kind of my informal healing. And then I'll use heel when I'm doing really structured work. Right now, my body language and my position on the leash is doing more of the communication than my words. And for dogs, that's going to be more important anyways. Dogs are very tactile, body language oriented creatures. Let's go. And so really, she can gain a lot of context just from my setup. Good girl. Let's go. If I want to make it more interesting, if I feel like she's getting bored and losing focus, good. We can add a little bit of pace changes. So I can get really slow. Good girl. This way, and then I can get really fast. Good girl. And then stop. And this just makes it a little less boring. She really has to pay attention, and it's interesting for her. Good. Good job. Sit. Bunch of sounds like fireworks, but good girl. So that's kind of the basics of what I really want to be rock solid before starting to really integrate in, work around other dogs, work around kind of some of the more challenging things. So if you have a dog who struggles with any sort of leash work, you want to make sure you're getting this really solid in a very small, kind of more sterile environment before starting to like try and go down a Home Depot or, you know, work around a dog park. So basically taking small enough steps that your dog gets the bases before you kind of throw them into the fire. Obviously I'm working in a very small space just to be on camera, but I would like to start something that small in the beginning and do fairly short, you know, maybe 10 minutes tops early when you're starting to build these skills, and then starting to extend a little bit longer and a little bit longer. As far as building up to like leash walks around your neighborhood, if your neighborhood is a struggle, usually what I'll tell clients is that I think of the house as like a bubble. So in the beginning, my bubble's very small. So I want to just see how much room my dog can be successful in. So whether it's just the driveway or the front yard or even the backyard, if maybe passing cars or dogs are a struggle for your dog. And then just slowly widening that as the dog is showing success. So if my dog is doing really well just in the front yard, then maybe I'll extend to 2 houses down and we'll start doing these same drills, direction changes, just asking the dog to be right next to us. And if my dog isn't kind of constantly struggling with trying to forage or losing focus, then I'll just keep bumping out until instead of a couple of houses, you're looking at a block and then maybe a couple of blocks. But basically, we don't want to start off going, hey, I need to do this 2-mile walk, where we know our dog is going to struggle and they're going to pull on the leash and they're going to practice bad habits. I'd rather have a very small, very successful session like this where the dog is able to really clearly understand what they're supposed to do without really struggling to maintain focus and motivation. Than a really long session where maybe it's just kind of and the dog isn't really practicing what I want them to practice. You'll get good results a lot faster this way rather than trying to do too much all at once. So it takes a little pressure off of you and it takes a lot of pressure off the dog. So yeah, we'll keep working.